welcome back to District 6 Covered. Appreciate you showing up. And we are in Cheyenne, Wyoming at what I consider one of the best suppressor companies in the entire United States of America. So, before we get interested, before I introduce you to one of the three owners of Thunder Beast Arms, you guys should know this. Every time I go to some match somewhere, there is always a cert that has your guys' logo on it. You guys are huge supporters, whether it's 22 rimfire, centerfire, PRS, whatever. You guys are always out there, so I appreciate it. Thanks, Zach.
You're welcome.
Is Zach.
Hi.
I don't know if I can say your last name or not. Or...
It's all public anyway, so who cares?
Okay. So you and two other individuals, you want to name them as well?
Yeah, me, Ray Sanchez, and Shane Coppinger
Okay.
are the three partners. We actually met through shooting like 15, 16 years ago.
Nice.
And at the time we were shooting jet cans from Texas. We all had like one or two of his, and we were shooting those on precision rifles. And, I don't know what happened to him. He stopped shipping cans for a while. And we got together and we're like, maybe we should make our own cans. And
If you're enjoying the video so far, make sure you support the channel by giving it a like, hitting that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button so you can be notified of the next video coming out. All right, back to the video.
Shane had been a master machinist in the Navy for over 20 years. Or he was in the Navy for over 20 years. I don't know his classification per year or whatever. But, no, we just started to make them after we got our SOT.
Well, so those of you that don't know, so there's a lot of people that make suppressors all over the nation, basically. The problem is a lot of them are not set up, in my mind, for precision rifle shooting. You guys have some very heavy use cans. But most, when I think of this, when I see this anywhere, like an Ultra 7 or something, this is accuracy and quiet.
Yes.
And a lot of times, people are making stuff out there, but the accuracy is just not there compared to some of these.
Yeah, if you go back to what I call the bad old days of silencers, this is like the early 2000s, like 2000 to like 2000, I don't know, 5 or 6. There were very few silencers on the market that didn't actively degrade your accuracy on your precision rifle. So we all met. We were all, I was into IDPA 3-gun, IPSC, and then we all got into long range and multi-gun, whatever. So we were all competing in long range with at the time, there's probably more expensive rifles today, but pretty good rifles. And it was kind of a chore to find a can that didn't actively make your groups a lot worse. Look, back in 2003. For example, I have a Halo, a Gemtech Halo, from way back in the day, at this point probably close to 20 years.
Okay.
Every time I put that thing on my A2 flash hider, my zero changed a little bit. So if you're it's a battle gun designed to shoot, people essentially across the room, okay, it's probably fine. But that's not okay.
But you want it to be accurate.
That's not okay. I mean, having a non-repeatable zero is just it's a flat out a no-go. Yeah. And back in the day, there were a couple direct thread cans that were good. And there were, I guess they were all direct thread cans back then, but there were probably 2 or 3 direct thread cans in the market in that time frame that were halfway okay at not harming your accuracy. And some of them still would because they had baffle structures that were asymmetrical or would cause a problem. So we basically started a company with essentially the express goal of making an accurate suppressor. This is we got our SOT in January or February of 2008.
Okay, so that's when the company had started?
Yeah, so we had met a few years before and kind of kicked around some ideas, and then we applied for our SOT in 2007, and it showed up in 2008, and I think the next day we literally had our first can welded up.
Yeah, we can build them now. We got our SOT.
We had all the ideas. But yeah, that first can, the 30P, honestly at that time our only goal was to be either quieter, to be at least as quiet and lighter than the jet can, which by today's standards was pretty loud and pretty heavy.
Yeah.
The can in your hand, the Ultra 5.
This is extremely light, but it's all titanium.
Well, the modern Ultra 5 is pretty close in suppression to those cans we were talking about from 2007.
Okay.
Yeah. And that weighs 8 ounces, and we're talking even the titanium cans from 2005 weighed close to 20 ounces.
So have you gone to all titanium, or is there still...
We sort of
The
like
super heavy duty use stuff, you're running steel?
actually no. Well,
It's all titanium,
we
right?
sort of like have specialized in titanium from the get go.
Yeah.
So we've sort of like, I won't say we redid the material science, but let's just say we understand how titanium acts in the context of like high rates of fire and high stress on in a silencer a lot better than we did a decade ago. And as a result, like we've been able to make like full auto rated titanium cans. Like right now, anything that has our SR mount, which is this locking mount, anything that we have in a can that has that mount is full auto rated. And there's some debate in like the whole shooting community, like what full auto rated means. Like, does it mean you can put it on like a 249 saw and shoot like
800 rounds?
well, shoot like 800 rounds or shoot like a 2,000 round, like whatever. You're gonna melt your gun first, right?
Yeah.
But what we did is we basically took the SOCOM surge cycle. The SOCOM surge firing schedule is an 8 magazine, so each mag is 30 rounds. It's a 240 round shooting schedule where you have a certain like firing schedule per mag, and you have to basically do it as quick as you can with fast reloads. And I can't quote it. I have it on the website.
Okay. But that's like a military
Well, but basically, like you're gonna shoot like
qualifier?
you're gonna well, it's a firing schedule. So it's gonna be like one. This is just an example. Like one mag is like semi-auto as fast as you can shoot.
Okay.
Or like they tell you like how many seconds per round or vice versa, and then you shoot one burst, and then you shoot one full auto, and then you go back. And what we found out is basically like the first like 4 to 6 mags are basically just to heat soak the can, and then the last ones are the ones that actually put the stress on it at its weakest point. But basically what we did is we designed like this is a Dominus K, which is the short one, but we have a full-size Dominus, and then we have the Magnus, I guess, and the 338 can.
Yeah, that's
But all those are designed to withstand, they're guaranteed to withstand at least 10 of those full cycles.
Oh, wow.
So that's 2,400 rounds where each 8 mag thing is the worst possible firing schedule that the military defines.
Yeah.
And
that's not in a row. That's within the lifetime of the suppressor, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess my point is like, it doesn't count as one surge cycle unless you shoot the full 8 mags.
Yeah.
Like if you just shoot like a couple mags, like full auto, it doesn't even count because it didn't get the can hot enough to put the stress on it in the first place. And if you actually go on the Dominus, like when we came out with the Dominus SR can like 4 years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago now, on our website, like on the product page for it, there's a video where we shoot 11 cycles back to back.
Oh, wow.
And we cool it down with an air hose between, and you can see them in the can's red. Like we don't omit any video.
Yeah.
It's all on there, and we guarantee it'll last at least 10 of those.
Well, see, that's one of the nice things is you guys have spent not only all the time and energy and technology into building the best of the best per se, but you're running the best equipment for sound, really getting the ideas. You were just telling me about how you were able to meet with companies that had a chance to come, and they all went under the sound deal, so that's really cool.
Yeah, and the sound on the sound metering, like everyone is always like, well, how quiet is this can? How quiet is that can? Like, what's the decibels? What's the decibels reduction? And like, I mean, I was in the same boat before we had this company, and even after, we were like, well, if numbers are on the internet, are they good numbers or are they junk numbers? And
correct, yeah.
You know, and there's some conspiracy. I won't call it a conspiracy theory. There are some people who believe that the industry as a whole has tried to like lie to customers and make them sound quieter. I will be a little bit more forgiving. I'll say that look, up until the B&K Pulse, the Brule and Cager Pulse system, that is the system to use these days. If you look at MIL standard 1474, like an A, B, C, D, E, depending on which version you have from what year, the older versions of that standard specified 2 sound meters that were valid to use. One was the B&K 2209, and one was a Larson Davis that I've never seen for sale anywhere. So they must have not made very many of them.
Yeah, there's one out there somewhere.
But the problem is, like, so we bought a 2209 in probably like 2010 or 2011. Like, as soon as we could find one back then, we bought one. And we tested with it. That's how we came out with, you know, some other cans. But what we actually found out in the last probably about 5 years is that all the data we gathered before we got the Pulse, and the Pulse is just like a colloquial name of it. It's like the nickname for that system. Okay. It's actually called the LAN XI system. the data acquisition system. But we found out that all the data we got with the 2209s, the data was trash.
Oh, really?
And I mean, like,
so it was starting over then.
It wasn't statistically valid. Like, it was starting over. And I mean, man, how heartbreaking is it to realize that
you guys had years.
That all the data, and I mean, I say this because I know that other companies have 2209s. But just like, imagine if all the R&D decisions you ever made based on the data from the 2209s was statistically invalid or wrong. It means that you might as well have just picked your design changes at random. Like, is this can quieter than this can? Well, if your meter said that this one was, but it was really this one, and then you start to do more development based on this one, your whole development tree of what you try.
Well, you guys have
different.
Updated this one because I have the older Ultra 7s.
The regular, the
Gen 1s or whatever.
Yeah, the Gen 1. So those we already had the pulse on. So that was just like an incremental change. But if you go from like the 30P1 to the Ultra series, I think at that point we didn't have the pulse yet. But in any case, my point is that like if you go back, so I would say all the data that was published prior to probably, I don't know when the first pulse was out there, maybe 2015, like plus or minus a few years.
Anything before that?
Anything before that, the numbers, they might be in the right ballpark.
Yeah.
But like a ballpark doesn't give you enough information. You know?
Well, you guys are doing this completely correct because you actually have a facility that's basically environmentally out of the thing. Like
we do.
I mean, you should. You're a suppressor company.
You know, it sounds really. And my engineers, like I was an electrical engineer before I had this company, so like, but I let them handle all like the mechanical and like sound engineering data because they're in that world every day, and I'm more sort of there as like the old guy who does cross checks on stuff.
Yeah,
like,
you just double check.
I'm like, hey, wait a minute, and they're like, oh yeah, here's all the information, and then we check it out. But actually, the reason we originally got the barn, because I mean the cat's out of the bag now that we have a barn. The reason we originally got it,
I could cut that out.
Yeah, no. I mean it's in. Everyone knows about the barn.
Okay.
But the reason is, hey, what's Wyoming shooting? What's shooting in Wyoming known for? You're shooting
wind.
There's wind everywhere.
Lots of wind.
And you know what? Like if you're outside, like with a little sound, like with your sound meter system, be it a B&K or like the Pulse,
it's going to pick it up.
The wind destroys. It makes it almost impossible. And what we did is we like, hey, we need to get out of this wind. Yeah. And like even if like the wind, like the 50-mile-per-hour winds blowing on the outside of the building adds like a few dB to the noise floor, that's okay. It doesn't affect anything that we're measuring.
Well, and you can get work done.
And we can get work done. So we can get work done in the winter, like when it's like snowstorm, like basically, and you know, going back to the old 2209s, and the 2209 is like, it's like made of like bakelite, you know, it was made in like the 60s or 70s, super old machines. Originally, we thought that like temperature, humidity, time of the day, we thought all this stuff made a huge difference.
Well, and the environmentals of the trees.
But you know what it actually was? When we got the Pulse, we did the exact same stuff we did with that one, and we had one can. It was an Ultra 9, not an Ultra 7. We had one can, one gun, and one lot of ammo that we took to every metering session for like the first like over a year that we had the Pulse.
Okay.
Every number we got off of that was within like less than 1 dB. So like the standard deviation you'd normally get in like a run of data, we got that same kind of standard distribution for like it was like within a half dB over a year time period, with different times of the day, different temperatures, different humidity.
Oh, so it wasn't
all that. So it wasn't. It was the environmentals.
Yeah.
It was the environmentals that affected the old ancient machines.
Gotcha.
Right, because they're like analog, like all the circuitry like drifts when it gets hot and cold. So basically, like all that uncertainty, we're like, man, are we having like a loud day, quote unquote? We're like, no, the B&K 2209 is not environmentally stable. So like, there's all sorts of lessons that we learned, just like getting rid of the old machines, and that's why I would hesitate to say that the industry as a whole like cooked numbers. I just think the numbers were bad.
Yeah, just bad data, basically.
And then also there are other systems on the market that are advertised as being able to measure gunshots. But if you like, there's the Larson Davis LXTI, and if you look at MilSpec 1474E, it specifies a minimum sampling rate, I think, of like just under 200 kilohertz, to meet the rise time requirements of a gunshot. Okay. But that LXI system only does like 48 kilohertz.
Oh, it never gets there.
So it doesn't even meet the standard for sampling rate to measure the peaks. So like if you're just measuring any, we can get into a discussion of like impulse measurements versus like peak measurements. But if you have a sample here and a sample here, and the peak happens between them, you've missed the peak.
You don't get anything.
So I would just say like, and look, we all know that like if you read someone's like manufacturer like A on the internet, all their numbers might always be shifted up or down like a few decibels. And you're like, well, how did
they get one extra decibel or?
Well, whatever. So
it's
and when you start to see a pattern, you're like, well, maybe they're just measuring a different way, or maybe whatever. But the bottom line is like what we've tried to do to just take all the mystery out of it is Ray, puts his iPhone up on the little stand, and then he goes in front and tells you what we're going to test, and then we have the whole thing on video. I mean,
and you guys did how many last week?
We did 200 can plus rifle combinations last week.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
and not just their stuff.
No, so the event and this I don't think this podcast episode was meant to be just about that event, but I'll go into it real quick. Like,
why not?
The silencer industry is a kind of a cool industry to be in. Like, it's way better than working for like a huge company, in my opinion. Because like we're friends with like 90% of our competitors.
That's awesome.
And like,
it's a small community.
It's a small community, and like. The reality is, like, I don't need to cut someone else's throat or, like, start shit on the internet or whatever. It's like, we can just... We can all make good stuff, and then we have customers to buy it. And let's just have... I mean, this is our life, right? Like, why would you want to be a jerk, to people who are doing the same thing that you're doing? I mean, at the end of the day, look, we're all Americans. We're all making, like, awesome equipment that's made in America. Like, we're on the same team, right?
Well, and it's good. say these are kind of like your players of your... basketball team or whatever, right? And then they have their guys, and then maybe you can go, okay, well hey buddy, you didn't do so well today or whatever, so maybe it gives you an idea of tweaks, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and really like, so we've been trying, this. One of the purposes of last week is to actually help train other people in the industry how to operate the Pulse, because the Pulse isn't just like, oh, it's your iPhone app and you hit play and it records it and you're good to go. It's like, no, dude, you have like a little mainframe that records stuff. You have like your drivers. You have like templates in like the Pulse software. You have like all the physical setup.
Yeah,
you have to like
hikes.
There's a lot of there's a lot of very specific stuff to get your experiments, and then just to get the data acquisition system to work right. Like just driving that thing. Like we've had guys at other companies, they have the cell phone number of my head engineer just to ask him, like, hey, my Pulse software is doing this weird thing. Can you help me for a second? And we're like, oh, yeah, you need to go into options and disable this or enable that or whatever. It's just... So I guess my point is that, like,
you guys are helping each other. That's
we're just trying to help each other, right? Yeah. And then part of last week, we're like, hey, what if we all got together and we all had, like, the same physical environment and the same, like, experimental setup, and we just all brought, like, as many cans as we could bring on the plane, and just like measured everything. So we took an AI, a 20-inch AI in 308. We brought a Daniel Defense Mark 18 and 5.56, and those were like our two main like test vehicles. And then we had some other like all the oddball stuff like pistol, PCC, 45.7, like all the weird stuff.
Yeah.
We kind of did on the third day, but like basically, our goal was just to get the most data as possible. So I've actually been running some programs to crunch all of the data, because like you need to get the peak out of each. Like, it's one thing to just like, hey, we're going to run a test and then crunch the data. Mm-hmm. When you have like 200 data things and like every... Oh, what? Did that fall over? Is that good?
No, it's still good.
Okay. Like when each shot, we have 3 mics, and each run is 5 shots. So we've got 15 shots per
host.
Per can.
Or can, yeah.
And we actually... So, there's some debate about, like, oh, should you take the peak or, like, the LEQ or whatever, all this stuff. Well, you know what? We save the waveform file, so the physical waveform, we save that for every shot.
Wow.
So, like, if you understand the physics of the building that we're in, like how far away stuff is, and you look at the waveform, you can calculate whatever you want to.
Yeah.
Like, if you want...
All the data's there.
It's all there. So, like, you can, like... object, like, hey, it would have been better if you were outside, and I'm like, well, find me a place that has no wind, and we'll do that, that's fine.
Yeah,
but you know what?
Nowhere.
We tested 200 different can combinations in 3 days on the exact same setup, and all this data is directly comparable. And I can calculate, unweighted decibel peak, weighted decibel, like a weighted decibel peak, we can do like impulse, LEQ, like whatever you want we can do. We're probably going to publish those. And then we have 3 mic positions. We have mill left, mill right, or shooter's ear right, and then we have a position that's more in the rear that some people are talking about using. So we'll just have all that data.
And it's all apples to apples.
It's all apples to apples.
So that's the best, that's scientific testing.
I mean, the best thing is like...
You can't beat that.
Everybody who was in the room, I mean, we're like... multiple times during the day. We're like, hey, if anybody has a problem, you see like a problem with the experiment or like a problem with the setup, like if you take like 70% of the major silencer companies, and then you have one or two reps from each of those, and some of them are like the owners or like the engineers, and they're all like staring at the setup, and they're like, yeah, this is pretty legit.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know, like, experimentally how you could get better. I mean, you might be able to, but this is probably the best, like, biggest test done the best to date, and we're going to publish all the data anyway.
Awesome.
So,
where would you end up seeing that information one day?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
We'll have a link to it. It's going to be obvious when it comes out.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be the biggest data dump you'll ever see.
6 million pages.
But, you think about it, it's like, hey, it's better for me if I know, like, let's say a new can comes out. And, like, nobody knows how it performs. Like, we can go order one and test it.
Yeah.
But, like, the more efficient, like, if there's actually like good data out on all these cans, then the customer can make a better decision.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, this is an Ultra 5. This is a loud can. But you know what? It weighs less than 8 ounces, and it's like...
Yeah, it only takes
It adds 4.4 inches to the end of your barrel. It's like, this can has a purpose, which is not the same as this can, right?
Correct.
But unless you know the actual performance, you can't make an informed decision about it.
Well, see, and we've done videos in the past where we kind of have tested some suppressors on just basically what we're hearing from our ear, And the problem is you'll get a good question. It'll be like, so this Ultra 7, and then you'll have it in 30 cal, and then you'll have it in like 6. And the guy will be like, well, how much quieter is it? You can't answer the guy because you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's really a good question, but for a guy that doesn't have all the gear,
I mean, look, if you have a small, like, we've all done this, right? Like, we'll be like, hey, bring your can to, we're going to the range. Like, why don't you bring your Fly 9 and I'll bring my Osprey and you bring your whatever other 9 can, right? Some other thing, a YHM 9 or whatever. And then, hey, we're all going to, like, one guy will shoot them in random order and we'll all turn our back and see if we can guess.
The third one's the quietest, or the second one's
the thing is, if you have, like, about 3 cans, like, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
Right? It's not quantified. It's just like, hey, A is quieter than B and B is quieter than C. Okay, we got it. But once you get to, like, 6 cans...
Never happened.
You can't even like remember that many.
No, I haven't.
Furthermore, if you go like if it's from yesterday, yeah.
Oh God, no.
Hey, was it a suppressed shot or was it an unsuppressed shot? That's about what you can remember, right?
See, there's no way.
Yeah, Anyway, yeah. So we're kind of like, look, we're for transparency, and we're just trying to make. I mean, look, we all started this. We didn't need to start this company. We just wanted to. So we're just kind of like here.
Awesome. Yeah.
And just making the best that we can and doing the best work that we can. So,
well, maybe you can tell some people which one started off first. Maybe you got something cool coming out. Kind of talk about some of the stuff here. I'll get good video footage later.
Yeah, I'll give you like the product run through.
Because like right now they can't see any of it, so you'd have to.
I'll
have to bring it over here.
Okay. So,
where'd you start? What was the first one?
Basically, in the old day, this is an Ultra 7, which is 7 inches long, but like the old form factor for a full size like 30 cal can was 1.5 inches in diameter by 9 inches long.
Okay.
So I don't have one here, but that would be an Ultra 9.
The 9, yeah.
Like the Ultra 9, that form factor's been like the old.
Was that to be inside of a handguard? Or was that like kind of the reason?
I personally think it was just because like you didn't need as big of a lathe to cut the baffles, and 1.5 inch tube is really common.
Gotcha.
That makes sense. Because they used to make all cans and tubes and everything, so that's an easy way to make a can, right?
Okay.
Well, so what happened was we had the Ultra 9, and then we made a shorter one, the Ultra 7, it's 2 inches shorter,
and then
7 versus 9, and then we make a 5, an Ultra 5. So basically, as you get shorter, you get louder, but you also get lighter and shorter, right?
Yeah.
So like the Ultra 7 is by far our most popular hunting can, and probably the most popular can for like PRS type stuff.
Correct. It is a perfect combination for precision rifle stuff.
And if you look in comparison, this Ultra 7 is quieter than the 1x9, than the 1.5 by 9 inch long cans were back in like 2012. Okay, so if you just want like a reasonable level of suppression. So it suppresses well, but not like crazy.
I don't have to run Air Pro with it.
But it weighs almost nothing and it only adds 6.4 inches to your overall length. So that's the Ultra 7. Then we have the Ultra 5. The Ultra 5 is really like a specialized can. Like if someone's buying their first suppressor, I would never recommend this, right? But let's say you
Which
have,
makes sense.
let's say you have like an Ultra 7 or even like a bigger can, and you're like, you know what? I wish I had something that just took the edge off for like backpack hunting, you know,
Yeah.
or like a gas gun, right? Like let's say you, well, actually we have some military guys who are using this on like big frame gas guns because
Just to get
it takes the edge off, like quite a bit of the edge off, and it's super tiny and it doesn't really affect anything. It just takes the edge off, right?
Yeah, and your barrel length doesn't keep growing.
Yeah, and you don't end up with like an equivalent like 28-inch like gas
Yeah.
gun or whatever, right? And then what we came out with is, well, we also have a 22 can that I don't have here.
It's amazing.
The 22 Takedown, I think it's one of the most underrated 22 cans in the market.
It is my favorite can. So here's what happened. We did some testing.
Uh-huh.
And this is, it might be on the X-Ring channel, I can't remember. But it was my favorite, right? And there was one can that ended up being like right there, and this is with the gear that we had available.
Right.
And I was sad. I was like, no, because I had just picked up one of your cans.
Okay.
And it was in jail waiting.
Okay.
And then I was like, oh, I was a little sad and butthurt for a minute, and I ended up getting the other one as well, which it's the switchback,
Yeah.
and it does a great job. But no, I love that 22 takedown that you guys have.
And that one, I mean, it's
Quiet as hell.
the
It's
thing
so
about that
quiet.
is it doesn't really have first ground pop, and it suppresses like really well.
Well, we haven't even talked anything about this part. Is for those that may not have suppressors, there's a huge difference on tone. Like, yeah, there's a reduction of sound, but then there's a tone that it puts off. Like if it's a muffler, right? You know those guys in the Nissan with the blah blah blah. You know, like that's annoying sound, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you get the right exhaust or suppressor for your, it just sounds so much better, or it feels better in your ear. Like when, I don't know how I can say this, but the one suppressor that we're making for the other company I used to work for, it was a beautiful tone. Everything was good, and the people that tested that, some special people that tested that, they really loved the tone of it. But yeah, no, it's awesome. So then this is your newer stuff.
Yeah, so we kind of had. So one thing is, we had direct thread. So I don't have a direct thread. Well, I guess this one is a pistol can, but you can see there's like a direct thread. It's designed to direct thread on. All pistol cans are, but most of our we had direct thread rifle cans, right? And then shortly thereafter, we developed a system. It's just a thread over muzzle brake system, TOMB, or thread over muzzle brake. There's tons of thread over muzzle brake systems. The bottom line is you usually have like a brake or a flash hider. You have a shoulder or something on here to have it stop on, and you have threads, right? So threads
that kind of zeroes it. Perfect.
Well, the advantage of
stuff.
using this is that it locks up super tight on that shoulder, so you actually have better. If this is red Loctite on your muzzle, and you screw that on, like the interface on this tapered interface is going to be way tighter than just like the flat threads on your barrel, right? So the reason to use like an intermediate brake like this is one, so you get a 5/8 for your bolt gun, a half 28 for your 5.56, whatever, and then you have better retention of the can onto here. Okay, so that's one major advantage because like just a regular like a 90-degree shoulder does not lock up very tight.
Yeah, you gotta. Seems like you gotta check it more.
You do. You definitely do. And this will not really get loose unless you start to go full auto, right? So that's we came up with that, and then look, quick release or QR or quick attach systems have been on the market forever, but
like the quarter turn stuff.
The quarter turn
3-lug stuff, tri-lug.
Well, tri-lug, I'd put that. Tri-lug actually for like PCCs, like 9mm, isn't that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
for 9mm.
On like
I'm
MP5s
totally
and stuff,
yeah.
tri-lug is the way to go, whatever, right? But there was the bi-lug on old Gemtech stuff. Remember that one?
I'm not familiar.
It was called the bi-lock, and it had two big lugs. It was almost like tri-lug, but it was two of them, and it would operate a little bit different, but basically the same.
Okay.
And actually, my old Halo can I actually sent back. It started life as a bi-lug or a bi-lock, and I sent it back to Gemtech, and they converted it to a Halo for me.
Nice.
This is like 2006 time frame.
Okay.
But there's downsides to that on precision rifles that it's not like a super precise lockup, right? But even if you go back to the clicky style, like QD mounts, the problem with the clicky style is that like when the can like stops on the brake, right? It's going to mechanically stop on something.
Yeah, when it hits the wall or whatever.
If it doesn't stop right when your little detent is right in the bottom of the little trough, then it's either going to want to loosen up or tighten up, right? So it's like if you're between teeth on a clicky mount, if that thing just loosens up a tiny bit, and usually that's on Acme threads, which are really coarse threads, so it's really easy for it to back off like a tiny bit. Well, if it backs off a tiny bit, right, now you have like just a little bit of play right here, and that's going to make your accuracy go away. Right.
Well, and kind of, you got barrel harmonics doing that.
Right, and plus, I mean, you wouldn't want that to vibrate like separately from the barrel anyway.
No.
So what we did is it took us quite a few years, but we came up with what we call the SR mount. So this stands for secondary retention. It's really meant as like a secondary lock on the primary.
Yeah, because it still locks up into here.
It still locks up, so I brought out an SR brake. Okay. So an SR brake has an Acme thread, and then, it has a shoulder in front of the Acme thread, and then we have teeth back here. Now, you might be thinking, oh, you've got teeth, you're a clicky mount. Well, the mechanism in here doesn't actually like click on here. I'll show you what it does in a second.
Okay.
But our objective was to make a mount that was like precision rifle accurate, but would have a reliable secondary lock that couldn't be off by one click, essentially, right?
Okay.
So what we came up with is this SR. So the way that this works is, I'm not going to screw it in because they'll get stuck, but you're going to screw the can body all the way onto your barrel.
Yep.
And then once it's fully tight, then you turn the lock and collar. Okay? And what that does is there's a little arm that comes down. You can't see it, but if you,
I'll throw some video.
Yeah, if you have one, it's not this big arm. It's the small little tooth right there.
Okay.
That tooth,
that's the one.
Yep, that little tooth in there. That tooth is actually on like a cam pad.
That's this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what can happen is like at any point in time, like that tooth, it could end up in like this one or the one next to it.
Yeah.
But no matter which one it gets into, based on like the cam path,
yeah,
it can fully tighten down in either of them.
Okay.
So it's impossible to be off by one because any notch that tooth ends up in as it's starting to travel, it can fully tighten in.
Gotcha.
So, and this, mount, we first debuted it on the first version of this can, the 338 Ultra SR, because we were submitting for a solicitation that required a secondary lock. Almost all military contracts require a secondary lock.
That's what they wanted, yeah.
Right, and but we designed this from the get-go to be precision rifle accurate, but also full auto rated. So when we made a Mark 18 can, for a 10.5 inch, this can is full auto rated on the SR brake with the SR lock, right? So this lock will keep it tight on there through all the cycles, right? So that's
it's a backup. It's a safety line.
It is. the locking collar actually does tighten it a little bit more on the primary threads also. So, I mean, if you tighten that down with two hands on your gun and then tighten the collar, it's going to be on there super tight. Super tight. In the last...
So you just want to bring it on so it's tight.
Bring it on tight with 3 fingers and then turn your lock. And one question we get a lot is hey, my little detent screw didn't go all the way to the far side. Is that okay? And actually, yes. If it stops anywhere in that lock region, anywhere between the two lock tabs, it's good. But if it goes all the way, it's okay to shoot. But it probably means that you could have tightened the body more before you tightened the collar.
Okay, that's actually good to know because I have two Dominus and one I'm still waiting on, but I was wondering about that actually.
We also did recently make a design change, just an engineering revision to that collar.
Did it usually open up on one side a little more than the other when you tighten it down?
Well, when you tighten it on the so you're asking about does this thing stay square?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm asking because mine doesn't.
This whole collar has play. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but
probably not. But they'll believe us.
It has play in this direction, right? Yeah. And the reason we have that, and when you tighten that down on a brake on a barrel, this gap might not be parallel.
Correct.
And the reason that is that we could have taken that all out. But then if you would have gotten dirt or sand in there, it would have ground up. It'd
have been done.
It would have been. You could probably still make it work, but it's going to be jammed up.
But it's still, because it's hitting this part, it's still lined up directly perfect.
Well, like I said, we could have taken out that little geometric, weirdness, I guess, but it would have made it less reliable. So this is the most reliable setup for it. just the way it is, and it will cock the collar just a tiny bit when it's tight.
which isn't a big deal because it's all lined up inside, right?
Right.
So it don't matter.
Right. Because when that goes on, like the shoulder that's inside here is gonna bottom out on this shoulder right here, and that's what keeps it straight. And you know, because we have the lock and the collar tightens it even more, we were able to go to like an Acme thread on here, so you have about 2.5 to 3 turns on this to get the can all the way on. You know, one thing I will note, since we have an audience, do not mount this as if it's a Surefire can, right? A Surefire can goes straight on, and then you turn the collar.
Yeah.
Because the collar mechanically holds the can on the brake. This is not like that. If you do that, the can will fly off because you haven't actually followed the directions.
Nothing's threaded in it.
So just don't do that. And actually, the engineering change we made probably about 6 or 8 months ago is we actually made it so you cannot turn, if the can is not on the brake, like at least like a couple turns, you cannot turn this locking collar into the lock region. It'll actually stop.
Oh, that's good.
So, and even if that mechanism like jammed up, you could still operate it properly. That's just like a sanity check that like if you're trying to put it on like a Surefire, it won't let you even turn the collar the whole way.
That's actually a good safety feature.
And even, you know, it's like to do that, you would have to do it the wrong way. I hate to demonstrate this, but to do it the wrong way with an old non-revised version of this, you'd have to push the can on, hold the can body, and turn this separately. Because if you turn this, the whole can's going to turn anyway. So
yes,
that's just the mechanism.
Thread.
Yeah, so the SCR works by the can body is going to screw on the big threads for about 2.5 turns, and then when that's tight, you're going to turn this collar somewhere in the lock region on here, and then you're good to go. Okay. But at that point, it's not going to come off.
So you have a non-timed, and then what do we got here? This is
we have a BA that's a timed brake for a 338. We have one of those.
Which would be a smaller version of this would be for the Ultra 7.
We have a version of that. I just didn't bring one right now.
No, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's called the timed CB brake. It looks just like this one, but it's shorter. Yeah. And then we have the CB flash hider, if you want a flash hider.
Which you can run a can on if you, or take the suppressor off.
Yeah.
And you got a flash hider.
And then we have the SR brake.
But that's only for this style.
The SR brake goes on all the locking SR cans only. And we have a non-timed version of this. It just has brake ports every third of the way.
Kind of similar to this one. Right?
It looks the same idea.
Yeah.
So the idea behind the non-timed brakes is that a lot of guys only use, like, they're never going to shoot their muzzle device without the suppressor on.
Yeah.
And the idea is if you don't care about the orientation of the brake because you're going to shoot suppressed, we'll just make it easier to mount because, like, to time this on your barrel is kind of the pain in the butt.
It takes a little while.
You have to use your peel washers or, like, some little shims or whatever. Yeah. And, like, really, you should only have to do it once per barrel, but it's still kind of a pain in the butt. And, like, honestly, like, if I'm only going to shoot suppressed, why don't I just Loctite this straight on my barrel and call it good?
Yeah.
And that way, the guys with OCD, they won't be like, well, my brake ports are a little bit off.
It's 3 degrees over.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's basically a rundown of our muzzle devices. We have the CBs, which is like the small format ones for like the Ultra 7s or anything with CB in its name. And then we have the BA, which is the same exact type of thing, but for the big 338 cans. I don't have that one here, and then we have the SR for all the SR cans, which would be the Dominus KSR, the Dominus SR, the Magnus SR, and the 338 Ultra SR.
So there's all 3 of those are basically the same tube diameter, right?
Really close.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a difference, but
the SR
you wouldn't notice by just visually.
The SR also requires that it's a can. It only works on the cans that have a larger diameter.
Okay.
Just because the mechanics of this are bigger. So this is like around 1.7 to 1.8 inches, and I give a range because like each particular model based on like when it was designed is slightly different. Okay. And these are all tubeless also. Like I think starting, the last can to go tubeless was probably I want to say what's the Ultras, the Ultra Gen 2s probably.
Because you guys are on new technology now.
Everything is tubeless. The first can we made tubeless, I think, was the Dominus.
Is it would saying 3D? Is that the correct terminology?
These are not 3D printed.
Okay.
3D printing is like where you have like your square and like your laser and like your like powdered titanium and it like
okay, so it's not.
No, these are all machined, all on CNC, and then we
and then welded.
And then we weld them, and there's no tube.
Okay, gotcha.
So the advantage of no tube is that we can increase the internal volume a little bit because now it used to be you had like the tube and then inside the tube you had like your baffles, right?
Uh-huh.
And like just for structure, you had a certain thickness of what we call the skirts of the baffles, and then a certain thickness of your tube, right?
Okay.
And even if all the baffles were still welded together, you still had some overlap. But this way, we can actually get rid of some of that thickness to increase like the inner diameter of this guy.
Yeah, which is more volume.
It also removes a lot of manufacturing time for us.
Okay.
And we can also make them straighter. So with all those things, we can actually make a better can faster.
Nice.
And then for repair on tubeless cans is a little bit different. On old tubed cans, what you do is you just basically figure out, based on like your measurements from your print, like where to cut off here and where to cut off here. Then you get your hydraulic press and press out the old baffles. Make sure your tube stays straight. And then to make a repair, like a repair stack to put in the original tube, you'd have to because look, every lot of tube has a different ID.
Yeah.
So even if you buy like 1,000 feet, the next 1,000 feet is going to have a little bit of a different ID. So basically, what you have, and usually if you're in production, you're gonna 1,000 feet is going to be however many cans. Say it's like 1,000, just for the sake of argument.
Mm-hmm.
Like those, and then you can tweak your CNC program for your baffles to have the same OD, right? And then the next 1,000 cans, you tweak it again for the next batch of tube. Well, for repair cans, you have to measure the ID, and then now basically go make a custom set of baffles to go in that repair
just
can.
for that can. Yeah.
But with tubeless cans, what we do is the serial numbered part is this back, it's like this. It's like the structure of the can right here is excuse me, the serial numbered part. We're able to basically cut off the bad part, and then all we do is just run the same program to generate more baffles, and then we'll weld them on and refinish it.
Oh wow!
So you might end up with like a little weld mark.
Yeah.
Depending on like where it is,
That's
but
cool.
It's going to be pretty minimal.
So a lot simpler to repair.
A lot simpler to repair, and a lot simpler to make. But it just requires like better equipment to make them.
Yeah, which I'm sure over the years, your equipment evolution has gone from startup to a lot better stuff.
Yeah,
more machines.
I'm not going to go into like the different welding technologies we've done. Like originally, 15 years ago, we were welding on like a bench, like a bench
roller.
center, a bench center roller with like the gas coming in, and it was basically by hand. That's not a really great way to weld titanium. Even if
when that's what you got,
look, if you're in your garage or in like your little shed, like doing it, that's how you do it. Like now we're on pretty advanced, I'd say probably the most advanced titanium welding on the planet right now.
Well, you don't even see the welds.
You don't even see the welds.
You don't even know there was a weld there.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think our can, actually on Sniper's side, like last week, someone said, oh, if you're running a tubed can like the Ultra 7, I'm like, bro, none of our stuff has been tubed for like over 2 years. So, but I mean, the reason you can't tell is because we actually finish them properly afterwards.
You'd never guess. Hell yeah. Any other new exciting anything coming out?
Oh shoot, man, we still have more cans to talk about.
There's a ton.
So in the last 2 years, we just gotten we've been talking about making a pistol can forever. Like we're rifle guys, so we made rifle cans, and we're like, hey, maybe we should make a pistol can. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I think what happened is, the fall 2 SHOT Shows ago, so not this last one, but the one before, it was like probably the middle of Q3. One of our engineers was like, hey, do you guys mind if I take some old Ultra 9 baffles and put them in a pistol can and just see if it works? And he did it, and it was it performed actually pretty well.
Nice.
It performed comparable to the top fifth of other pistol cans in the market.
Hell yeah.
And we're like, oh shit, we might need to actually make this for real. So we did a development, and we made the Fly 9, which is a modular 9mm can. So you can take this off and just shoot this part with the end cap on.
I remember seeing that at SHOT Show a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so we have a regular booster on the back that takes industry standard booster pistons.
Okay.
So we're not going to make 8,000 SKUs for booster pistons. We basically just make the 4 common ones.
Yeah.
Which is, we make 2 different half ones because some SIGs are muzzle indexed and a lot of them are shoulder indexed. And then we make the 578 by 24 for 45 ACP. And I think it's.
Are you making a 45?
But we have a Fly 45 too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the Fly 45, it ended up longer. Well, let me just finish on the Fly 9. Like,
yeah, because when she said 45, I'm like, what?
yeah, so this can take like a regular tri-lug, same deal. The main cool thing about ours is like, what we found out with pistol cans is like if you take the 10 best pistol cans on the market and put them on the sound meter,
Yeah.
they all sound the exact same, like plus or minus like 1 dB. They're basically all the exact same, unless you get into like some giant like subgun can or something,
Yeah.
right? So what we did is we're like, okay, if that's the case, let's just make ours as tiny as possible and keep it right in that quiet range.
Because this one in full configuration with the R2K9 was, I think, pretty spot on.
They're really close.
Yeah, I don't remember who won or whatever, but
and like
the tone as well in this one. Like I love the R2K9 from Microtech, but I think the tone was about the same.
Well, and one cool thing, I mean, this is tiny. I mean, you know, we all watched 24 with Jack Power. And it's
Yeah.
like super tiny suppressor on there. I'm like, dude, that would be really loud. Well, this is one of the few 9mm cans that actually gets relatively tiny. Like you could actually like stick this in your waistband with your gun. Like a Glock 43X with this can is actually tiny. You know.
Now, how many baffles is in that portion? 3, 2, or 3?
Let me see real quick.
Or maybe
1, 2, 3, 4. I think 4 or 5.
oh, that many. Okay,
Yeah, there's some in there.
there's a bunch in here too.
That might be why it's quiet.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, is that what makes it quiet?
But yeah, I mean, our short configuration is about the same length as a lot of the long. I'm sorry, our long configuration is about the same as a lot of other guys' short configuration.
Yes.
So we're like, hey, you know, this is as quiet pretty much as anything else. I mean, it's close.
Yeah.
But if you want to take that off, now you have something that's actually small.
Yeah, which put the little end cap on there on something.
Right.
And yeah, you can have a nice little setup.
And then for this year, we came up with the Fly 45, obviously for 45 ACP. But we also wanted it, like another design goal was for 4570.
That's really popular right now.
And like through the development cycle for the Fly 45, we were like, is this too, like, do we want to, if we make a 45 ACP can as light as possible, can we still make it rated? Like, does that mean we need a second can for 4570?
Yeah.
Well, it turned out, I think we had to add like 0.2 ounces or something stupid like that to make it 45.7 rated. So we just like added like a tiny bit of weight to the Fly 45, and it was fully 45.70 rated anyway. So
it all depends on where it's at. It's got to be on the walls or somewhere that makes the pressure hold for the 40.
Yeah. So,
45.70.
but that one you can also shoot like 308 and 223 from like regular 16-inch barrels and stuff.
Oh,
so it's rated for more stuff, like 10 millimeter, like 357 maximum, like all the weird stuff. It's not for like Magnum rifles. You know, if you want Magnum rifles, you go to an actual rifle can. You know, obviously. But no, it was really cool. Like, you know. Earlier we talked about like, oh, you're gonna test like this, like how many rifles are you gonna test a can on? Well, dude, on pistol cans, there's like, well, we have the short and the long, and then we have how does it shoot on a Glock or an HK,
Yeah,
or like
so many.
How does it sound on the MPX or like the MP5 or like 350 Legend or like 45.7? Like there's just so many, and you can kind of see like on our website, I have like the PDF of like our data table for the Fly 9, and there's probably 60 data points.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's just like so much data, it's really hard to like crunch it down to like a 2-sentence summary of what's going on.
Yeah, you basically can't if you want to give good information for sure.
But so that was cool. Now, let's see. We came out with the Magnus about a year ago.
No, we'll talk a little bit about that. What is that?
So the Magnus is a big diameter, so it's about a 1.8 diameter can. It's shorter. It's sort of like the 30 caliber version of the 338 Ultra. Okay, so it's the same length as an Ultra 9, but it's an inch 0.8 in diameter. So it's
more volume.
So it's a fat can that's about that long, and it's still the quietest can, or the quietest dedicated 30 cal can on the market. There's one other can. It's the Hydrogen L, which like during our metering last week, they were like right neck and neck the whole time. But that one, we make that in the CB version for like this for like these guys. And we make it in hub, and we make it in the SR brake.
Well, the Coyote Hunters have been loving that can, that 30 cal.
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
Because it's like, I'm like, because I have a cert that I took off the table for to get one. And I'm like, gosh, what do I want now? And they keep going, man, you got to get that one.
The Magnus is really good, and it's also rated for like ridiculously low. We basically kept
super quiet.
Well, so our 338 can we built, like our proof gun for the 338 was actually a 14.5-inch 338 rifle. Like to do proof testing, it's rated to 16, so we always go lower when we do proof testing. And in the 30 cal, obviously we're not shooting a 338 because it's too big, but our proof, like our barrel length limits are ridiculously short for like huge magnums on the Magnus. So either the Magnus or the 338, if you want to shoot like a 300 PRC, like 14-inch barrel, that's your can right there. And a lot of guys I've talked to in the last like year especially are being like, hey, would it be like really stupid if I built like a 15-inch or like a 16-inch like 300 PRC? And I'm like, you know what? If you're no, I mean I'm into weird stuff, you know, but
it's funny.
Yeah, I mean I've got a 12-point-something-inch 308 SBR. You know, it's like there's some cool stuff out there. But I mean, if you think about it, if you want to put a lot of lead at a high velocity on a target that's relatively like close to you, like look, 500 yards and in, you'll never. I mean, I won't say you'll never need it, but like you basically don't need a super long barrel, right?
No.
Like 500 range for long range matches is like close range, right?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, you can even take like your 308, like an old like AWP AI or whatever.
Yeah. I used
to shoot an I guess a 24-inch barrel, but I mean like your ammo selection, like I would shoot ball ammo or like good lapua ammo, and at 400 yards and in, my data was the exact same. Like when my zero was the same, and the data was the same. So I'm like, you know what? All the close targets, I'm just going to shoot ball.
Yeah.
So getting back,
waste the cheap stuff.
If you want to do something weird with a short barrel on a Magnum, like the 338 or the Magnus is your can.
I think so. Well, awesome. Well, I'm sure everybody appreciates all the sponsorship that you do for all those matches. And it means a lot to all of us. And and we don't tell the people that put all the certs on the table. Thank you enough. So I appreciate it.
Well, people do, like after almost every match, we do get some emails.
That's good.
And look, the way that me, Ray, and Shane got into this whole thing in the first place is we were all shooting matches.
Yeah.
Like Shane was a high power shooter in the Navy. I mean, we all got into it shooting like field style long range stuff. So when you say like we all appreciate it, I mean I consider myself part of the league. I haven't competed.
Well, you have to be one of the owners right now.
I know I'm the owner right now.
You don't get to be a shooter right now.
I'm also like a match director, and I also I
haven't even scratched that service. The competition dynamics. So that's your thing.
That's just my thing.
Yeah, that's your thing. But look up competition dynamics. Great matches. They're there's so many of them. Steel Safari, Team Safari. Burris Extreme.
Burris Optics Team Challenge.
Yeah, there's just it
Challenge.
It depends how crazy you want to be and how much. But look it up; it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll just give like the quick blurb. Like that kind of came out of this was in like the late 2007 to 10 time frame. Some of the matches were going away or kind of fizzling out, and like me and some friends and Ray was involved too. Like we wanted to run the matches that we would have wanted to shoot.
Yeah.
So. And we're basically and it means they're kind of hard and a little bit non-standard and totally field and all sorts of stuff. And
yeah, you're trucking and hiking, and some of them they're chasing you, and you got to haul ass. And
quite a few of the matches nowadays have the exact same format as like the Steel Safari. I mean, it's the Steel Safari format,
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I didn't invent. The first year the Steel Safari was 1998. I took it over as match director in 2008.
Okay.
I shot it as a competitor, I think, for the first time in 2006. I mean, some of these ideas have been around for a long time. It just takes a while for them to, filter out.
What's cool, though, is when it says it's, starts at 7, each team, every 15 minutes, those matches run so flawlessly. Because I've been to matches where I'm, sleeping for, 3 hours waiting for my turn.
I know.
I know. It happens, and there's fog delays and stuff that we can't deal with, but yeah, they always run perfect, which is really cool.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, look, we just try to run a no BS event with we try to eliminate the idea for having the wind bitch, so to speak, or having any. We have team matches, but I don't like it when in an individual match when guys around the match are on the same group of guys and they text people stuff. I mean, like,
yeah,
pretty
that's
much,
not fair.
pretty much all my stages are blind. You know, we try to make it fair and good for everybody. So,
Yeah, no, it's
yeah.
It was challenging. It was one of the first style matches I had ever shot, and me trying to find targets. I didn't have the concept of what to be looking for.
Right.
Like, why is there a big white bright target out there? You know.
I know.
I struggled the first year, but it was good. And now I'm in Laramie or Cheyenne, headed to Laramie to go shoot an NRL 100 match. So
Yeah.
the championship or whatever they call it. But no, I appreciate it. I appreciate everything. I guess Raymond's getting a tan out in California.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Spend a little time with family and stuff, so that's cool. But didn't get a chance to say hi to him again. But thanks.
You're welcome.
I appreciate
Thank
it
you.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for showing everybody the stuff, and I'll try to get some video of up close stuff so they can check it out.
Nice.
Thanks.